dear students, good morning one and all. All human life on the planet is born of woman, the one unifying, incontrovertible experience shared by all women and men is that months-long period we spent unfolding inside a woman's body. The above quote is made by one of the most celebrated, widely read, and hugely influential American literateurs, Adrienne Rich. She self-referenced and defined herself as a woman, a lesbian, and feminist. She is oft criticized for her anti-male bias and questioning of patriarchal assumptions. Most of her writings are labeled as confrontational, argumentative, and disputatious. She can be considered as one of the leading feminist voices in the American literary canon. Claiming an education is a convocation speech delivered by Adrienne Rich to the graduating women students of Douglas College, New Jersey, United States of America. This particular speech was first printed in the magazine The Common Woman, and later it got reprinted in On Lies, Secrets and Silence, Selected Roots. Today, let's see what the entire text is about. What are the major points incorporated and integrated by Adrienne Rich in her convocation speech, Claiming an Education? At the very onset of the speech, she explains in a crystal clear way how she intends to structure her speech. She says she plans to divide her speech into two parts. The first part is, of course, an address to the graduating women students of Douglas College. And the second part is an address to the teachers in a women's college. Adrienne Rich says that these two parts are indivisible, inseparable. She agrees with the common understanding, the general conception of university education as a process of modification, refinement, development, where students are polished, refined, developed, and molded into expected and desired roles. But at the same time, she breathes in a new nuance, a new shade of meaning to the concept of university learning. She says university education also means an ethical and intellectual contract between a teacher and a student. In the due course of the speech, she tries to make a distinction between what it means to claim an education and what it means to receive an education. She asks the members of the audience. You can even consult a dictionary to find out the difference between the meanings of these words, claim versus receive. And she says, to claim means to assert, to be the owner of. That means when you claim an education, you consider education as your right. But when you receive education, to receive means to accept. So, when you receive education, you consider education as a mere choice, a mere option. She reminds the members of the audience, you are in this college, in this university, not to receive an education, but to claim one. That means education is not an option, but it is your right. She then points out one of the weaknesses of university learning. And the weakness is total deletion, complete rubbing out of, and absolute erasure of women's lives, experiences, history, and thoughts from the curriculum. Not only that, women are also excluded from being members of the academic community. And she says, take for example the case of Douglas College. Douglas College itself is a women's college, but it is administered overwhelmingly, excessively by men. She's pointing out the defect. She's pointing out the scarcity of representation. Very few women, both in the levels of faculty and administrative areas. So she says, what you learn from here, what you read, what you hear are all not objective realities, are not accurate and complete pictures of the past, but distorted realities. The texts that you read and the lectures that you hear are all blots of information as perceived, understood, organized, and propagated by men, especially white men. So when you come across great issues, major texts, the mainstream of Western thought, what you are hearing, what you are reading through is all what the male-centered tradition has decided is important. Adrienne says that sciences can be racist. Sciences can be sexist too. And what she means by these two powerful statements. Blacks and other minority sections were discriminated, were segregated on the basis of their ethnicity, on the basis of the race into which they belonged. Their racial and ethnic experiences didn't find a place, didn't get expressed in literatures labeled as human. Sciences can be racist. For a variety of reasons, Adrienne Rich says, for umpteen reasons, the thoughts and experiences of women were also excluded from the curriculum. And more women, they were finding a bit difficult to understand and compromise with this kind of exclusion. Sciences can be sexist too. Adrienne Rich invents, she creates a chain of words, okay? Backlash, faddism, group therapy, unscholarly, etc. Now all these words are indicative of the negative reactions, the hindrances, the obstacles that stand in the way of a woman's access to education. But she says, in spite of all these negative reactions to a woman getting educated, a whole body of knowledge, a whole body of academic discipline called women's studies are still growing, are constantly evolving. And what happens as a result of this? The growth of this branch of knowledge will offer more and more women an insight into a fresh vision, a new understanding of their lives, their history, their thoughts, their experiences, and so on. Not only that, it also offers a critical basis for evaluating what they read and what they hear. Adrienne Rich is pointing towards fostering the spirit of critical inquiry among women. She continues her speech. She says, I am here not to talk about women's studies, not to talk about getting enrolled in women's studies, but I'm here to talk about an altogether new concept. And this is that education is an essential personal experience. Now, what do you mean by that? She makes it more clear. She says, education means taking responsibility toward yourselves. Responsibility to oneself. Now, what Adrienne Rich means by responsibility to oneself is given different meanings. On the first hand, she says, responsibility to oneself means refusing to let others do your thinking. So what happens? Here, you are learning to respect your brain and your thoughts. If you want to respect your brain and your thoughts, a whole lot of hard work is demanded from you, is needed from you. And then she says, responsibility to oneself means not treating your body as an object, as a community to be solved or bought. Responsibility to oneself means you are able to say with Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. You know that Charlotte Bronte was a Victorian novelist. She was the eldest among the Bronte sisters, and she wrote under the pen name of Cara Bell. Jane Eyre was her magnum opus, the masterpiece work by Charlotte Bronte. So responsibility to oneself means you should be able to say with Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre that I am born with an inward treasure that is capable of keeping me alive, even if, I'm stressing that two words once again, even if all the external delights, even if all the extraneous delights are shut out, are withheld. She continues, responsibility to oneself means you are not ready for easy and shallow solutions. You are not ready for taking up gut courses, and instead of gut courses, you choose more demanding, more challenging courses. Responsibility to oneself means not bluffing at school or in college, but doing solid work. Responsibility to oneself means not seeing marriage and pregnancy as forms of escape, as forms of evasion from existing problems. And she says, if you are ready to take the above said decisions, then you are resisting the external forces, the patriarchal structures, or the societal powers. And if you are to resist the discouraging societal forces, something is needed from your part. And what is that? It requires courage of the rarest. It requires a different courage. Now, what Adrienne Rich means by different courage, she says, this is the meaning of different courage is given by Adrienne Rich. She says, you should be able to proclaim to the world, you should proudly announce to the world with an unshakable confidence that I am currently unavailable when you need a time, space, and place of work. This is the meaning of different courage. You should be able to tell others that now I need a time of mine, a space of mine, a place for me. So I am currently unavailable. To others, in the sense, it can be your parents, your lovers, your husbands, your roommates, your teachers, and the like. Different courage also means you lead a life of meaningful work, where work has equal meaning like that of love and friendship. And she says there is huge difference between a life lived actively and a life of passive drifting. And once you feel committed, once you embrace this new way of living, you will never be contented. You will never be satisfied with the old way of life. Here ends the first part of the contract. Dear students, as I told you earlier, this particular speech consists of two parts. The second part is addressed to the teachers in a women's college. Now let's see what is the address given by Adrienne Rich to the teachers in a women's college. She says that many teachers, both male and female, are trained in the male-centered tradition. So whatever information they spread, whatever information they disseminate, are all based on the male-centered tradition. So students and teachers are trained in this kind of tradition where they forget to criticize the anti-woman attitudes. She also says that we all are born and brought up in a culture of discouragement. A culture of discouragement in the sense that is anti-intellectual and anti-woman in its inclination. And she says many of the male professors, they see their vocation in a women's college as a second-rate career. She also says there is a tendency from the part of male teachers to see their students as erotic objects. Many treat the students as sexual objects instead of demanding the best from them. So, teachers should be very careful when they administer their lessons, be it ethical, be it intellectual, to the students. She says, clear thinking, excellent writing, and active discussion are the three success mantras, are the three efficient ingredients for intellectual freedom. So instead of instilling a kind of passive recipiency in the minds of the students, teachers should develop them, mold them into expressive and thoughtful human beings. To substantiate her argument, to support her argument, she quotes a few lines as given by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. You all are familiar with Elizabeth Barrett Browning. She's the wife of the very famous Robert Browning. Now, Elizabeth Barrett Browning expressed with much impatience that studies cultivate, studies inculcate a feeling of passive recipiency in the minds of the students. And she says, instead of instilling passive recipiency, students should be developed into active thinkers. Elizabeth Barrett Browning points out two defects in women. The first is, of course, the logical faculty, and the second is, of course, the higher mental activities. Adrienne says that these two defects in women can be remedied, can be rectified by intellectual training. That means it is suggestive of not an inborn inability. And now we are about to discuss the concluding part of the convocation speech. Claiming an education concludes with the concept of university education as a kind of contract, as a kind of pledge of mutual seriousness between teachers and students. Rich says that education should be a matter of shared responsibility, a matter of shared commitment. Now, what she means by mutual seriousness. Students should be serious, teachers should also be serious. She says, students should reject attitudes like, take it easy. Why be so serious? Why worry? You will probably get married one day. Students should also understand that education is an ongoing, continuing struggle, active struggle. So this is what she means by seriousness from the part of the students. She also demands seriousness from the part of the teachers also. She asks the teachers to understand that women's experiences and thoughts are vital, invaluable, and indispensable to the growth of any civilization. So be very serious in your profession. Instead of molding them into passive recipients, you should polish them as active thinkers, where they are given a space to freely express their thoughts and ideas. She concludes the speech by saying that there is no more exhilarating and intellectually fertile place in the academic world than a women's college. Dear students, this is all about Adrienne Ritz's convocation speech entitled as Claiming an Education. Now, I would like to say that claiming an education is a well-structured, well-organized, well-framed, and well-developed speech. So wish you all the best for a fresh and new intellectual experience. Thank you.